This Mattern here with the Complete Advisor. So happy you're joining us. We have an amazing episode today. Today we're going to dive into tariffs, what they are, what they mean to your clients, tax planning, your practice. We're going to get into all of it with Becky Swansburg. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Let's take a listen. So joining us today, Becky Swansburg, CEO of Stonewood Financial, Washington insider, tax expert, and all-around awesome person. Becky, welcome.
I appreciate the all-around awesome person.
Well, you are.
See how you feel after we talk tariffs.
Well, as long as I understand it when we're done. So let's start there, because I think that is maybe one of the most confusing things. And not to me, it's confusing. To you, you've got this down like the back of your hand. I actually, as I was telling you off air, I was using AI trying to understand. So tariffs are all over the news. So there's two ways for us to talk about tariffs. The one, what does it mean? What does it actually mean to me, individual taxpayer? But then, what does it mean when it comes to taxes? And then also as an advisor, are there opportunities here?
And I think that's the real question with tariffs is, with this in the news, how do we frame up what's happening in tariffs to help clients make kind of informed decisions around the rest of taxes? So we'll start with tariffs.
Okay.
First of all, Dennis, you are in good company. Tariffs are confusing to everybody.
Wait, you know what? Let's level set. What is a tariff?
So a tariff is an exercise duty, a fee that goods pay coming into a country.
Okay.
So tariffs are used throughout history for a variety of reasons. If you want high protective tariffs, that's because you don't want another nation's product coming in.
Gotcha.
So high tariffs on, let's say, automobiles or automobile parts can help stimulate local domestic American automobile production.
Okay.
And vice versa. Sometimes they're used in the foreign affairs context, which is we have an issue with Russia or we have an issue with China. It's not really economic, it's political. In world affairs, we want to put pressure on another nation to do something. We'll make it harder for them to export their goods and impact their economy.
Gotcha.
That is tariffs.
Okay, that's tariffs.
Tariffs are very complex. And part of the reason they're complex is because many people, including some of those in Washington today, want them to do two things at once, but really they can only do one thing well at a time. Tariffs can either help us generate additional revenue for our country on imported goods. So if 2 years ago it cost $5 to bring a widget into America, if we double that tariff, it now costs $10 of that excise tax. That goes to the government. That tariff has raised an additional $5 of tax revenue.
Okay.
The other thing that tariffs can do, so either we make money because lots of goods come in at this higher tax rate, or goods stop coming in because they've become too expensive to import. No one wants to pay an extra $10 per widget, and that stimulates domestic production. And that's not a bad outcome. And that also helps government coffers because domestic production can increase business taxes and other revenue to the government.
Jobs and et cetera.
Jobs, lots of good things there. So neither of those options are bad, but the two tend to offset each other. At early tariffs, we tend to see the higher revenue coming from the tariff itself. Over time, that tends to shift to some more domestic production.
Okay, so that being said,
that being said,
the first part you said, we raise more money. If there's tariffs, that tariff goes up. So in the we category, what do we, and if you're listening, I'm actually pointing to myself as John Q. taxpayer, that goes to the government coffers. What does that mean to me? Does it mean anything?
Here's where I think this story is kind of interesting for financial advisors in this environment. On one hand, the government has more revenue. Potentially, they could not need revenue from other spots. The flip side of that coin is everybody buying the widgets is paying a higher price for widget. Where I think we're seeing it right now, and probably some of our listeners are feeling this within their own practices, is this question of, okay, the Trump administration has really put a focus on generating new revenue through tariffs, and their promise has been we'll be able to offset other kinds of revenue. So one question I'm hearing from just everyday kind of savers a lot is like, hey, will income taxes be lower? Will other taxes be lower because we now have these tariffs?
And Becky, we're looking to you for the answer on this.
I wish I had positive news. I would love for it to be low. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, obviously. But you know me, I love me some history.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of examples throughout history of administrations and eras trying to use tariffs to offset other forms of taxation. And it's interesting, I actually just finished a book that a Creative One advisor had recommended to me about a year ago called The Last Call. And The Last Call is all about prohibition. So I know you came here to talk tariffs, I'm going to talk liquor. But I think prohibition gives us maybe more insight to what could happen with tariffs today than maybe any other kind of data point that we can look at from the past. And here's why. I'll get us there.
No, I feel like I'm in a Malcolm Gladwell article where he does the two parallel things
we got to bring them together.
Okay, liquor and tariffs.
All
Go.
Right. In the early 1900s, beginning of the last century, where do you think 40% of U.S. revenue came from?
Liquor tax.
The liquor tax.
Yep.
40% of our revenue was from the liquor tax. So there had actually been, since the late 1800s, a kind of active prohibition movement that wanted to outlaw liquor for its kind of societal and moral reasons.
Didn't George Washington have to go and stamp out like the whiskey rebellion?
The
or
whiskey
something
rebellion.
Like history
liquor
class.
Taxes
Yeah, okay.
all over.
There we go. Okay, I digress.
Now, look, any part of obscure tax history is a worthy topic of discussion. So, as we got into the 1900s, there was this active prohibition movement. Congress was very reticent to eliminate or to enact prohibition because they didn't want to lose 40% of their revenue, right? It was very risky. But what happened in 1913? 1913, we introduced the income tax. And suddenly, Congress had this ability or another resource to generate all this revenue that gave them some comfort that if they eliminated the liquor tax, we'd be okay financially as a nation. And that's ultimately what happened. Prohibition went in, and you know what? The income tax wrapped up faster than the country had thought, and it not only filled back all of that liquor tax, it actually superseded it. So, as we got into the 20s, though, many of the leading business leaders and industrialists in the country were not loving life. They were paying all this extra tax. The income tax was really weighing on them. And so Pierre DuPont, John Rockefeller, and others got together and they kind of hatched a plan. And that plan was, let's get rid of prohibition. If we get rid of prohibition, the liquor tax will come back and we will be able to overturn the income tax. We will not need the income tax if the liquor tax comes back. So 21st Amendment was ratified, prohibition goes away, and as we all know, what happened to the income tax? We just kept on collecting it.
Yep.
And why did we keep on collecting it? Well, we were heading into the Great Depression. The country needed more money. And I know it's obscure to go all the way back to the 20s, but we are much like that era, now 100 years later, in another time where our country desperately needs revenue.
Yeah.
I do not believe we are in an either-or situation. Our government is in a yes-and situation, where yes, we need tariff revenue, and yes, we need income tax revenue. And the thing is, if the Trump administration lasted forever, it's possible that maybe these shifts in balance we could see. But what happens every 2 years in this country? We have elections. And that means the next administration and the next administration and the next administration all have to be equally committed to fine-tuning tariffs to offset other kinds of taxes. We look at our debt. Our federal debt is $38 trillion.
It's insane.
We have Social Security and Medicare, which some estimate through the end of the century, we have about $75 trillion of unfunded liabilities through those programs that current tax law cannot cover. We are desperate for new ways to bring in revenue. And, we hear politicians talk a lot about the ability to cut taxes and reduce taxes. And look, I am all for that. The challenge is the number one thing driving spending growth in our country is nothing political. It's not the bills Congress is passing or kind of what the president wants to do. It's Medicare and Social Security. And those demographics are already baked into a certain extent. So all of this is a long way of saying the thing driving America's need for new revenue is demographic, not political. We know we're going to need more revenue in the years to come to pay for the Social Security and Medicare programs. And we know that Congress is going to be looking for every way possible to generate that revenue.
Yeah.
Over the administrations of the future, we're going to see a yes and. We're going to see the liquor tax and the income tax, the tariffs and the income tax, and IRMA and these other kind of surcharges and fees, all the different ways the government can be creative to fill the coffers.
Wowzers.
We need more revenue. Yeah.
We do. Well,
sorry to burst the bubble. I wish
I was
tariffs
hoping,
could cover it all.
I was really hoping that you were going to tell me that I was not going to have to file this next year, that it was going to be all squared away.
Yeah.
You know what? Going back to the prohibition, that is history it doesn't necessarily repeat it. What do they say? It doesn't repeat itself, but it echoes, or
it does.
Um,
and if you look through most higher tariff times, I don't know that there's a single one where we've dramatically reduced other taxes in response to it.
Yeah.
It is normally leveraged either to bolster up economic production domestically. We saw that very much with some of the tariffs with American auto manufacturing kind of through the 60s and 70s, or as kind of a political power play as we figure out things in the world with allies and adversaries.
Do we, so somewhere out there, have we just collected a ton off tariffs, or?
It's a great question. The tariffs, this round of tariffs is interesting because a lot of them were kind of rolled back before they even fully went into effect through kind of some of the negotiations. So the tariff revenue is coming in. It is significant. And we just passed OBA. So we do have these extension of the lower tax bracket rates. And so you can say that for this era, maybe those two pieces are balancing out. I just don't think this era lasts very long.
Yeah. There's just, not even being political, there's just so much that has to be paid.
It is. And, I mentioned this before, but the real aha moment for me was not that there's a lot of spending. There's been periods with a lot of government spending.
Yeah.
It's last fiscal year, we brought in $4.9 trillion of revenue total as a country, $4.9 trillion. $4.1 trillion of that went to mandatory spending, to Medicare, to Social Security, to Medicaid. So almost all of the money our government is taking in is just being used for these programs. There's not a political solution to this at this point.
Yeah, and no one's gonna touch.
You're not taking away Social Security
even
and
just
Medicaid.
adjusting the age.
Yeah.
I guess since I'm on this side of it, it's like, well, why don't we just adjust the age? I plan on working a lot longer than my parents, and my dad worked a lot longer and finally decided to hang up the working shoes. But man, to mention it on the other side, I'm sure I would be kind of not happy.
And we may see some adjustments to age. I could see over the long term Social Security becoming, rather than kind of a deferred compensation approach, a more means-tested benefit like other things. We could see like what's happened in the Medicare program. I mentioned IRMA, but you used to just pay your Medicare premiums and you got your health benefits. Well, the Medicare Modernization Act in the early 2000s said, hey, we need some additional revenue. Let's create this new Medicare surcharge that higher income earners will pay in addition to their Medicare premiums. And so we get IRMA. We are going to see a lot of ways that the government's going to have to get creative to generate more revenue. And where I think it's important for the advisors listening to this podcast is the impact of those taxes will not be broadly spread. They will be concentrated on our clients.
Yeah.
Because the trend is how do we look at income and then base taxation off of that income? We are kind of in this era of more income focused than consumption focused, right? That we're not really seeing a lot of new tax initiatives on consumption. We're seeing tax initiatives like IRMA that we can tie to income. And that means our clients that have done a good job saving for retirement, that want to support this lifestyle they've been promised, they're the ones with the targets on their back from Washington.
Yeah, that's it. Which is funny because it's funny to me that the group that has the target on the back tends to be the group that I would think demographically would vote more, or you think I'm wrong on that?
Well, vote more, but I think the challenge is that's the only way to make the equation work. I'm trying to remember if it was Cato Institute or Brookings Institute. One of the think tanks did a study, and they said, what if we had a new tax bracket rate of 100% that kicked in at $500,000 of income? So after you make $500,000, $500,000, 100% of your income goes to the government. And they found that even with that new tax bracket rate, if no behavior changed, which of course behavior would,
Absolutely.
we would still have about a $600 billion gap in the annual budget. So there just aren't enough ultra wealthy people to fix the tax problem. It has to be broader based.
But by God, let's tax that trope of I even heard, I was listening on to the radio this morning coming in, and a politician was talking and that's why we're going to go blah. It's like, you guys keep saying that, but the reality is, we're going to tax the billionaire, but I'm going to add you into that too.
Yeah. I like to say to people, you may not think you were ultra wealthy. The government might see you as a little wealthier than perhaps you think.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see. So so that was all sad news there. So as you heard it here first, I do have to file a tax return here this next year. Thanks,
That would
Becky.
I'm not a CPA,
Thanks,
but
Becky.
that is my best advice.
But that being said, then that goes to the other side of the equation, which, everything is yin and yang, which we have these issues, and that means that what we do for our clients is even more important. And your guys' approach and the way you present taxation as that risk category, and that let's protect from, you guys have a great phrase, and I can't think of it now, but protecting from Washington.
Yeah, the protection from this legislative risk of changes from Washington.
Even more important. So educating yourself as a financial advisor is even more important. So we'll come back to that in just a second, but let's go through. We just had all kinds of. We just had some elections. We just had the shutdown. What commentary do you have on that?
I have a commentary that, as we expected, things are very volatile in Washington right now. I think most people, even just coming out of our last election, knew that the Democrats were going to probably come back pretty strong in next year's midterm elections. Now, we are in a volatile time. A lot happens every month, but I do think these recent elections were good early indicators that is the trend we're likely to see. But also that through the shutdown, we're seeing the Democrats are kind of muscling back perhaps a little more than they were in the earlier months of the Trump administration. It's kind of wild to think we are just coming up on 1 year from the last presidential election.
That is crazy.
Miss a little, miss a lot. A lot is happening. But I think the real message for the savers that all of us as advisors serve is this. A lot of times it's easy to think that the next election can fix everything. We're one election away from things being better.
Yeah.
We are in a time of probably prolonged political volatility. And we're seeing, we saw that through Trump 1 and through the Biden administration and now Trump 2. There is not broad agreement and coalescence around kind of core ideas and kind of core standards right now. And so the thing that is driving legislative risk for our clients isn't actually whether Republicans or Democrats take the White House or Congress. I mean, that has some short-term impact. But as retirement advisors, the impact we're also protecting against isn't just the next 4 years, it's the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And so it's that change that is constantly disrupting plans. So when we look at taxes as kind of a risk class, like we would look at market risk and income risk, it's really about protection against the unknown. We could have 100% of our retirement assets in Apple stock and just hope, or in crypto, and just hope that it goes up forever. But most of our clients want a diversified approach. It's the same thing on taxes. If we have all or the majority of our savings in these IRAs and 401ks, we have no protection against these legislative changes, this risk of new taxes, rising taxes, IRMA things that they call a fee but are really just a tax. So I think the number one thing for advisors right now is to help clients understand that tax deserves to be a risk class like some of these more traditional financial planning classes, and that there are things we can do. It's not all doom and gloom. Things do not look great for America's budget, but we have Roth conversions, we have tax-free life insurance, we have all these different tools that can help protect us not just against tax bracket changes, but also against some of these other legislative changes. Roth income right now is not subject to IRMA. When they calculate whether your modified adjusted gross income for IRMA, Roth, money coming out of tax-free life insurance, none of that is included in those calculations. So we're at this unique inflection point where there's a lot of risk, but there's also a lot we can do. OBA has kept tax bracket rates low right now. We have this new additional deduction for seniors age 65 plus. It is a great time for advisors to be having these tax conversations, because if our clients are wanting to adjust the tax status of these assets, I mean, this is a once in maybe a couple decade opportunity to do it at very low rates.
Yeah, get after it.
Yeah.
Get after it. Bone up. Yeah, I mean, you've got to know, to be able to really help your clients, you've got to know these things.
Yeah.
And these opportunities that come and go.
And if they're convinced that tariffs are going to cover it all, let them know that much like prohibition, the government will take. We got a greedy government. Doesn't matter what administration is in it, the government wants money.
Yep. You know what I was thinking when you were talking, when you said that everyone tends to think that the next election is going to fix it, and you just think of what politicians and in the general, like what resonates, and the message of, the fat cats in Washington spending, and it's like what you said. I wrote this one down because I like it. It's demographics. It's not political.
Yeah.
I mean, so most regular people probably think that, if we just control some of that government spending, the toilet
bridges
seat
to nowhere, and the toilet seats,
the $400
right.
toilet. It's not that. It's not that. It's us.
Yeah.
And no one wants to affect. Don't take mine away.
Well, you look, of that $4.1 trillion we brought in, in revenue, 4.9 trillion. 4.1 of that Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid. Yep. Another 800 billion of that was net interest on the debt. So already 4.9 out the door. Then when you look at congressional spending, about 900 billion of the congressional spending was military and defense. And so unless you're going to argue we need less military and defense going forward, I don't think we're there right now. When we're talking about all these spending cuts that Congress could enact, and the toilet seats and the bridges, and it's just this very little piece of the overall pie. 84% of spending increases for the government that are projected over the next decade come from things Congress and the president doesn't even control.
Yeah.
So it is the time to be having these conversations with our clients.
No kidding. Okay, so final thought as we wrap this episode. What do we got besides get out there and talk to people and spread the gospel of control what happens to you, or control as much as you can?
I think right now the challenge, as we're having these tax conversations, ironically, is that because of OBA and tariffs, a lot of our clients kind of think things are going to be okay. And we look back at history. For sure, going forward, we're going to be in high tax bracket environments, lower tax bracket environments. It's always changing. But if we look back to all the way maybe the Kennedy tax cuts in the 60s, most eras of these low tax rate environments only last about 6 to 12 years. And the more volatile things are in Washington, the shorter those eras last.
Yeah.
So we have to help our clients understand, let's be excited about OBA, let's be excited about the new deductions, but let's use that gift and that excitement today for plan for what's coming next, because it's not going to last forever.
I've got to think, I should have thrown this out because that was a great last thought, but I've got to think that there are a lot of people that are 40-ish that probably have no idea, that have no idea of some of these opportunities, because what they probably, as far as the tax strategy, they probably are, kids are just entering college or heading out right in there. Any savings that they probably have done because life has gotten, I was just thinking about this the other day, of things that I pay for, subscription and phone and all that stuff that my parents didn't have to even mess with. So those that are younger and subscribe to different things, different expenses. So really only their experience with saving for the most part for retirement is just what's happening at work. And so the advantage that life insurance opportunity there, some of the different Roth, all these different things, it's going to be foreign to them, which is a great opportunity to talk to people about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm in my early 40s, and I've never lived through an inflationary period before this current time. I had never gone to the grocery, and all of a sudden the cheese pack that was $3.75 is now $5.25.
Yeah.
And so I do think we've got this huge swath of the population that is shook right now.
Yeah.
And that is starting to understand that a lot can change and that there are all these different moving pieces.
I think what you said, that's a great, I think what you said of this is not, I mean, this is our first time, because there were some crazy interest rate periods, but we were kids.
We were
So we were
kids,
like playing on
yeah.
our bicycles and our parents were doing. So even though it's our first rodeo, we can just like, going back to the book and looking at prohibition and these different things like that. This is our first time, but this has happened before. And so what can we take from it?
And I will say, the one thing that has always worked throughout history is just taking back control of your finances from Washington.
Bingo.
And I think that's the big takeaway is we don't know what's ahead. We've seen what's been behind. But if we can have more control and protect a portion of our retirement approach, a portion of our savings, a portion of our legacy from these tax and legislative changes, that's how we regain control. And that is what savers of all ages want. They want the control. They don't want to feel that the next election upends everything that they've planned.
I like it. And there's no better way to wrap this episode with that statement. So Becky, thanks for being here. For everybody else, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow the show. If you do that, what'll end up happening is every time we drop a new episode, you'll be the first to know. Also, if you have any topic that you'd like me to dive into with another advisor, shoot me a direct message, put it in the comments, send me an email. That'd be awesome too, because we have based a couple shows off that. So until next time, thanks for joining us. Becky, thanks again.